Welcome to the BEASTwriter family where social media engagement is encouraged. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be breaking down the 2022 NFL Draft as it pertains to, obviously, the Georgia products. As you see in the title, we're going to talk about the big five Georgia defensive players. We're also going to talk about Cincinnati and what my thoughts are on Myjai Sanders and, of course, Sas Garner. So before we go ahead and get started, I just want to say mahalo to each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. Just be sure to turn on and flip on the bell notifications so you get notified when I go live or when I upload content. So basically what I'm going to do is something a little bit different here. So I've been watching game film, coaches film. I've been off the grid, but I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, right? And so I grade players. As you guys know, I have my BWF grading system. I don't rely on PFF or any other source. I actually like to do the legwork myself so I can formulate my own analysis, right? And I'm going to go ahead and run down some of these grades on some of these players, what I like, what I don't like about them, and some things that may or may not translate at the NFL level. When you look at it from the perspective of, from a scouting's perspective, you really need to look and see, hey, look, does this convert? Like, if guy can convert speed to power off the edge, well, is that going to be in a 3-point stance or a 2-point stance? Or in college, and a lot of times in high school, if you play college football or high school football, you know a lot of times you can just get by pure athleticism. Unfortunately, in the NFL, you have to have technique along with that athleticism. Otherwise, you're not going to be in the NFL for too long. And the saying goes, you have to be fundamentally sound, and I think that's what a lot of coaches, a lot of scouts like, because in any program, whether it be a Power 5 conference or a Division 2 conference, or school, I should say, or the case may be, if you're coming out of like the Big Sky, right? Big Sky Conference or something like that, where you're not really well known. I mean, there's good coaches in every level, but furthermore, you look at the traits. You know, can this guy do this if we ask him to do this, or what was he being taught in college that we don't really teach at the NFL level, right? We teach them a little bit different based on this technique. So whether it's going to be box or where you're going to spill the play or box the play back inside, that all plays a role. And you really don't know what these college prospects are really doing, especially when you, like, for edge setting, right? I watch a lot of film and I can tell, like Cincinnati. I mean, for instance, right? There's a lot of teams that have slant, right? They slant one way, and that just says, hey, you have to hit that gap. You're not two gapping on the outside. And even though your last line of defense on the edge, that's not your responsibility because that's not what the defensive coordinator is asking you to do. So you can't really knock the player on that. You just have to look at the physical traits sometimes and the critical factors and saying, hey, can this guy do what we ask him to do at the next level? So we're going to go ahead and talk about it. I'm excited for this one. I hope you guys are excited. If you guys have anything that you guys want, feel free to ask me here and I'll be able to answer those for you. Stay on topic, just like last time and the previous time before that. We're using Super Chat and Super Stickers, so it kind of shows up here and I can just go back and forth. There's a lot of freaking tabs up here, so excuse me if I don't get back to you right away. Christopher Dupa says, what's up, bro? What is going on, Chris? And happy Wednesday, or I should say hump day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Daniel Jr. Middleton, my man, who also got the BWF t-shirt and swag. Thank you so much, my man, for always supporting and supporting the BEASTwriter family. Says, what's up, Beast? What's good? What's good with you, man? How do you like your shirts? How do you like your swag? Honest opinion. No pressure. No pressure. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about it. We're going to start with the Georgia Big Five defensive players. We're going to start and kick off. Just like I like building my NFL team or college team or the case may be, I like building it from the inside out. I'm a firm believer in that, so we're going to start right in the heart of that 34 base defense with the Georgia Bulldogs with nose tackle Jordan Davis, as I graded every single snap of him in 2021 that I got my hands on. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Jordan Big Dog Davis. All right, so if you guys are wondering who this guy is, you guys don't know who Jordan Davis is, you're really missing out. He's 6'6", 341 pounds, has a 34-inch arm length, so when you look at it from a scout's perspective and you're looking at that, well, 6'6", 341 guys don't grow on trees. Furthermore, when you run a 4.78, and I know if you're a scout, you look at the 10-yard split rather than the whole 40-yard time, but bam, 4.78, he's moving. I mean, he's not slowing down off that 10-yard split. He's continuously using that momentum and going forward and pushing forward. 32-inch vertical jump, 132-inch broad jump. I mean, those are crazy, ridiculous numbers for a guy that's 6'6", 341 pounds, let alone a guy who is like 5'10", and weighs like 180. I mean, the vertical, the explosive numbers that you see from the broad jump, from the vertical jump, and then the 10-yard split, it is really, 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 really impressive. And I know I'm not one to say, oh, well, he's in shorts, so he's a workout warrior. No, man. You turn on the film, Jordan Davis in my grading system graded a 9 out of a 10. All right? 9 out of a 10. Now, granted, I don't take into consideration his pass rush grade because he's not asked to do that at Georgia. So why would I grade him on the pass rush if he's not really asked to do that? Now, does this make him a one-trick pony? Not necessarily, because you do see the traits that we just spoke about before hopping on this live stream and going live and talking about Jordan Davis, that he does have the physical skill set that you need and you can coach up from the interior, right? So he's not scheme dependent, right? He's scheme diverse. He can play in a 34 front as a nose tackle, or he can play in a 4-3 as a 3-tech defensive tackle, or whatever the case may be, right? And that's why I really like Jordan Davis, because he's not scheme dependent. He's very scheme diverse, right? In my grades that I graded every single snap of him in 2021, he only had 3 missed run fit assignments. So he's fundamentally sound there, right? He has 4.5 tackles for no gain, 8.5 tackle wins of 3 yards or less. His best games that I graded was against Arkansas and Alabama. He had a half a sack. Again, he's not going to be a elite pass rusher, but I mean, it's Jordan. I mean, he still creates pressure, but it's just not going to get the eye-popping double-digit sacks that you would be accustomed to seeing. But again, like, why would anyone think that that's not a skill set? Anyways, he only had a half a sack in my grading system for -1, but he did have 4 quarterback pressures, resulting in a loss of down. All right. In my estimation, in my grading system, Jordan Davis is a top 15 pick all day long, all day strong. Top 15. The reason why I put him in the top 15 and not top 10 or inside the top 10 is because of the premium position, right? Nose tackles you can usually find in later rounds, right? Now, if he's a generational talent, that's one thing. And if he could rush the passer, by all means, man, top 10. But because he is a 2-down run stuffer, as good as he is as a 2-down run stuffer, I see him kind of slipping in the 15 to 20 range, believe it or not. And where they're being drafted in my mock draft is not necessarily where I have him ranked on my big board or my vertical board or my horizontal board. Those are all 3 different parameters. But what I'm talking about is Jordan Davis, the player, and he is a top 10 talent in this draft class, no question about it. But will he be drafted in the top 10? You have to look at the GM tendency biases, and you have to look at what teams are likely to do based on the team needs, based on what they did in free agency, and basically how they kind of build their team. Is it through free agency and then they complement the missing pieces in the draft, or is it vice versa, or is it a combination of the two? And again, financial salary cap plays a role in that. So Jordan Davis, to me, again, top 10 player in any given draft, top 10 to 15 players, I should say, in any given draft. But if you're looking for a team that would be a fit at the top of the draft, you could look at the New York Giants. They have multiple round 1 picks, right? Mickey Loomis from the New Orleans Saints, he drafted 2 defensive linemen during his time as the GM there, and he's still obviously the GM. He had Cedric Ellis. I think he was drafted number 7 overall. And then you also double down on those games with Sheldon Rankins out of Louisville. So he's not afraid to go ahead and pull a trigger on a defensive tackle. But what I think Cedric Ellis was and Sheldon Rankins are compared to Jordan Davis is by far the superior run stuffer. But those other 2 guys also brought a little bit more in the pass rush arsenal. All right. So that's why I think the Saints would be a good fit. Obviously, they team up with Cam Jordan there. You guys know how I feel about Cam Jordan. BWF grades got my vote for first team All Pro. The Steelers. No one's talking about the Steelers sitting there at number 20, right? The Steelers would be a good fit for Jordan Davis, and they need a nose tackle because Tyson Alualu, however you pronounce his last name, Golden Bear, Go Cal Bears, he fractured his ankle last year, and there's no timetable for his return. And if he's going to, the guy's like, 32, 33 years old? I mean, came out, I forgot what draft he came out, 2000, I don't know, it was a long time, 2010, 2009, something like that. But he's been in the league for a very, very, very long time, right? And so you have also defensive end Stephon Tuitt. We don't know if he's going to come back. So the defensive line does need, I guess, a facelift, if you will, and why not have Jordan Davis in the heart and soul of your defense to kick off those gains, right? And so that's why I think he'd be a good fit for them. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Jordan Davis. This is the first time I'm going to be doing this, so stick with me. All right. So this is what I like about Jordan Davis, right? So you see him right there in the middle. And look at this hustle that he is. This resulted in the first down in a big game, but look at that hustle by Jordan Davis. I mean, you don't see that anywhere from a guy that size. Normally they take plays off, but let's just watch it again. I mean, Jordan Davis is the real deal. You want to talk about a guy with a nonstop motor moving sideline to sideline, chasing a quarterback downfield? I mean, look at him. He is like so far away from the play, and look at that hustle. That 4.78 40-yard dash did a lot of good for him. You saw it there, all right? So with that being said, as Jordan Davis, I like him a lot. I mean, he's my top-rated BWF player in my grading system at a 9 out of a 10 when I grade every single snap, just like I do with my first team All-Pros and in the NFL and so forth, and have the rundown on the rookies and rank them. Jordan Davis is going to be a really, really good player for somebody, and he's going to fall. I think he's going to fall outside the top 10 just because it's not a premium position. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our second player. Daniel Jr. Middleton says, no, thank you. Love the shirts. Wear them for work in the jet. That's what's up, bro. That's what's up. I know they're comfortable. I know they're really comfortable. But I'm being biased. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the next Georgia product as we continue working from the inside out, and that's Trayvon Walker. All right, Trayvon Walker to me is the most versatile defensive front seven player that the Georgia Bulldogs had. And now when I grade every single snap of Trayvon Walker, he is not scheme dependent, just like Jordan Davis. He is scheme diverse in that you can use him as a 34 defensive end or a 3-4 defensive end or a 4-3 defensive tackle. Pick your poison. He can kick inside. You can play the 3 technique. He did that at Georgia. In fact, he played the piano, if you will, across the line. He lined up the 1 technique, the 3 technique, the 4 technique, the 5 technique, the 6 technique. I mean, you can line him up everywhere, and he can drop back in coverage. So the versatility with Trayvon Walker and why he was climbing up draft boards in the eyes of the NFL media or the people in the media today, and why he wasn't really talked about throughout the year. I mean, he was obviously within the scouting circle, but it doesn't really come to fruition until, like, I don't know, when the draft time rolls around. But Trayvon Walker, to me, number 44, that guy was considered the glue of that Georgia Bulldog defense because you can see how Georgia liked to use him in a variety of different ways. And when you have a guy like Trayvon Walker who then goes to the NFL Combine, I mean, just for God's sakes, man, the guy's 6'5", 272 pounds, has 35.5-inch arm length. So when you look at it from a height, weight, speed standpoint, he has that. And he has a 4.51 40-yard dash, right? That is ridiculous for a guy who's 6'5", 272, has a 35.5-inch vertical jump and a 123-inch broad jump. That's really impressive. But again, I'm not so sold when it comes to the NFL Combine. I mean, that's just to confirm what I see on film. I mean, these numbers are great, but it has to confirm what I see on film. Trayvon Walker's, those numbers confirm on film. This is my scouting analysis when it comes to Trayvon Walker, right? And I see I know people have him mocked in the top 5. I wouldn't put him in the top 5. I would put someone in the 10 to 15 range, but that's just me. Because I think what NFL teams are doing is they're basing the critical factors on what they think that he can bring to the table based on the variety of different roles he can play within that defensive scheme, whatever the case may be. But this is my analysis on Trayvon Walker, all right? A very disciplined run defender. Walker is very smart at flushing plays from box to spill, which we talked about. A versatile player who lined up at the 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 technique at Georgia. Walker had little to no drop-off in production from pre-snap leverage technique. He's very strong at point of attack and can withstand brute force from bigger offensive tackles in the NFL. So you can see the conversion from speed to power checks off, right? He can hold his own at the point of attack in the 34 base defense if he's trying to set the edge, right? Unlike another player who we're going to talk about. No offense to him, but I'm just pointing out good and bad in every prospect. I mean, come on. You have to. That's our job. But anyways, when it comes to Trayvon Walker, his pass rush shows promise and he can quickly convert speed to power while displaying a hot motor. However, his pass rush is somewhat inconsistent and gets stalled and becomes non-existent from game to game. So you really want to see a little bit more pass rush, maybe a rip, maybe a pull, maybe a swim, right? You want to see him kind of win the half-man game inside. Well, all these different things you can get coached up, right? You can say a defensive line coach and be like, hey, man, he has the skill set to do it. We just got to coach him up on how to do it, how to win the leverage game, how to be the lower man, how to get offensive tackles under their, you know what I mean? How to beat them and win that half-man game inside or whatever the case may be, winning off the edge. So, yeah, at 6'5", 272, Walker is scheme diverse thanks to his functional play strength. Comes down to his functional play strength. He has it. And like I say, he can play in a 34 base as a defensive end or a 4-3 defensive tackle, right? So I really like what he brings to the table. My grade from him in grading every single snap of 2021 is a 6.6 out of a 10. That's not bad. That's good. And I can see the Carolina Panthers at 6 going after a guy like Trayvon Walker. He'd be a good scheme fit for them. Giants also hold multiple round 1 picks. I can see them taking a flyer, maybe going with a safer pick early on and then doubling down on hoping he falls to them at their second pick, at their second selection, or vice versa. If they like him enough, they can go ahead and pull the trigger. But that remains to be seen. He'd be a good fit up in New York in the Big Apple because let's face it, defensive end Dexter Lawrence, a first-round pick, talking about first-round pick, I think he was drafted number 17 overall, if I'm not mistaken, out of Clemson. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. But he is in the last year of his contract. So if you're looking at it from a GM perspective, you're looking at this and saying, hey, look, Dexter Lawrence is going to be I ain't draft him, right? Joe Johnson, I ain't draft this guy. So what do you go from here? Do you just let him walk next year and kind of have an insurance policy in place with a guy like Trayvon Walker because you do hold multiple round 1 picks? I can see it happening. So Trayvon Walker would be a nice fit for the New York Giants. And I see a team like the Jets, the Vikings, the Texans, and the Ravens also could be in play for a guy like Trayvon Walker because he's also a scheme fit. Again, all these teams that I just mentioned is either a 3-4 or a 4-3. He's not scheme dependent, right? He's not scheme dependent, which is good. He's scheme diverse. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up some film on Trayvon Walker, and you'll see him here, right? You see him making a nice play right there. Just bumps the coach. I like that. Chest bumps the coach. Look how he lines up. He's lined up at the 5 technique, right? 3-point stance, or 4-point stance if you want to. 2 hands on the dirt. And he just makes a play on the football. There's a lot of nice things that I like from Trayvon Walker. He won't jump out on film in terms of, oh man, eye-popping stats, but he does the little things really, really well. And I think if you're a scout or if you're someone that likes the evaluation process of not being a box score reader, as I always like to say, you're going to like Trayvon Walker. Do I like him as much as I like Jalen Carter, right? Jalen Carter out of Georgia. He's the guy that jumped out on film, but he's not eligible for the draft. He's only a sophomore, going to be a junior next year. But Jalen Walker, mixing guys' names up. Jalen Carter, to me, I like him better than I like Trayvon Walker. But Trayvon Walker brings more to the table in terms of versatility, which is why I think his stock has risen so much. All right, so that's it on Trayvon Walker. Let's go ahead and get back to it. And we're going to talk about the third guy, all right, the third Georgia product and where he might go and land in the 2022 NFL draft. This is my favorite player in this year's draft class. My favorite player, Nakobi Dean. We're going to be hyping up Nakobi Dean because Nakobi Dean, to me, is a top 10 pick all day long. All right, I like Nakobi Dean. I don't know why he's falling in mock drafts. He shouldn't be. And maybe that's just for clickbait. Let's be honest. This time is clickbait. Let's be honest. If you follow Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, they really have it down to a science to where they kind of put random stuff in there, and then the final one's just kind of like a shakeup. It's like, but it was there all along. Come on. So I'm just putting it out there. Nakobi Dean, to me, is a top 10 pick. Now, will he go inside the top 10? That remains to be seen because he is an inside linebacker. Again, not a premium position. I don't see him falling outside the top 20 or 25. He may slip in that 15 range, and someone may pick him up, like a team like GM Eric DeCosta from the Baltimore Ravens. He always goes BPA. Did it with Patrick Queen, got BPA back with LSU. I can see him staying in the SEC, although he has an affinity for Oklahoma players, and going after a guy like Nakobi Dean sitting there at when they're in the mid-round there. Let's take a look at what Nakobi Dean brings to the table, right? So let me just pull it up here. All right, Nakobi Dean, he's only 5'11", 229 pounds, and has a 31 7/8 wingspan, arm length. So when you're looking at that, you're saying, oh, 5'11", 229, the kid's small. The kid's small. Maybe that's why his draft stock is plummeting, because he's 5'11", 229. He's not 6'2", 6'3", 235, 240 pounds, right? He's not there. He's 229, literally 229. So he's built more like a strong safety than he would be an inside backer. But if you look at it, and this is where fitness comes into play, and this is where I can kind of see it from a perspective. Because from a strength and conditioning perspective, you want to see, okay, so he's 5'11", 229. And I hate when coaches or whoever, they say, oh, he needs to add 10 to 15 pounds. Really? Okay, you look at Nakobi Dean and you tell me where that 10 and 15 pounds is going to come from. Is it going to come from the butt? Is it going to come from the quads? Is it going to come from the hamstrings? Is it going to come from the upper body? And if you do that, are you going to be compromising his speed? Because that's what makes him a sideline-to-sideline presence, which we'll go ahead and talk about a little bit in detail later. But again, what I like about Nakobi Dean, again, he's going to be the next great inside linebacker coming out of Georgia, just like Roquan Smith. You guys know how I felt about Roquan Smith coming out of Georgia. That was my draft crush, right? I want the Niners to draft him. I thought they had to trade up and get him, which obviously they did, because Roquan Smith eventually was picked up by the Bears. But I see Nakobi Dean. I like Nakobi Dean a lot. In fact, I like what Nakobi Dean brings to the table, right? He only had 7 missed run fit assignments in my grading system in 2021. He had 3 tackles for loss, 11.5 tackle wins, 3.5 sacks. So the guy can bring pressure as a blitzer, which is very, very key in the pass-happy NFL. Had 4 quarterback pressures resulting in a loss and down in my grading system. 2 quarterback hits, 3 pass breakups. All right, so this is my analysis on Nakobi Dean. All right. He's an instinctive, physical, and smart off-ball linebacker who wins the leverage game with a nonstop motor and sideline-to-sideline presence, IC 4.5 speed. Dean is no doubt the next great Georgia off-ball linebacker. He sniffs plays out pre-snap, being a film junkie. Very, very key if you're going to be the heart and soul of that defense, making calls and getting everyone pre-snap aligned correctly. All right. He's a player who can move with running backs on orbit motions and jet sweeps in space. Dean is the real deal and perfect for today's off-ball linebacker who can double up as a pass coverage asset. His BWF grade in grading every single snap was a tie with Ahmad Sas Garner, who we'll talk about later in detail, and that is an 8.6 out of a 10, which is a Pro Bowl talented player right off the bat. All right, so Nakobi Dean. In fact, if you're watching this, I already tweeted this out. I have hit on my last three defensive rookie of the year players. Right? I hit on the last 3. I already tweeted it out. I said Nakobi Dean's going to be my 4th. I'm going to hit 4 in a row. It's going to be Nakobi Dean. Now watch it be someone else. No, obviously it depends on the scheme fit, but I think Nakobi Dean would be ideal. And he can play in a 34 base or a 4-3 front. It's how the teams use him. You know, you can use him as a blitzer. I mean, how many times have you watched Georgia games and he just blitzes up the middle? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what Nakobi Dean brings to the table. All right. So here he is right here. And you watch him just sideline to sideline. Boom. We'll see it again. All right. So here he is in the middle of the field. Not middle of the field, middle of the play. Inside backer. Watch him just sort through the trash, kind of. And then boom, makes a play. All right, here's another one of Nakobi Dean that I think you guys will like. All right, bear with me for a second. This is an INT. Oh, no, it's not. This one's not the INT. This is another sideline-to-sideline play. All right. So, yeah, it resulted in a big play. But if you look at what Nakobi Dean brings to the table, it's a nonstop motor, right? Sideline-to-sideline presence. Look at him just chase this play on backside pursuit off a halfback toss to the right. I mean, he had to come all the way across the grain to go ahead and make that play. And look at all the other Georgia products on that strong side of the formation. and he just beats them all. All right. This is what I like about Nakobi Dean. Here's another play from Nakobi Dean, my draft crush. Now this, you have to take the good with bad. This is what the bag drill is used for. You know, you watch pro days, you watch the combine, and you see them do these bag drills. Well, the bag drills is for hand-eye coordination and also to test out your agility, but then also be aware, right? So if you're kind of like in basketball, right? If you see a guy that's open, you're not going to telegraph your pass and throw it to him, right? You're going to have to look off the defender. You have to kind of gain the needed separation in order to make that passing window. Same thing applies when sorting through the trash down in the trenches. And Nakobi Dean does need some work here, right? You see him right here. He seeks and destroys, but then gets tripped up by the offensive tackle. And that led to the big play and him not being able to make the tackle on that play. All right. But this is just being nitpicky. I mean, this is few and far between after watching every single snap of him in 2021. In fact, when I run the grades on him, if we go back, he only had 7 missed run fit assignments in my grading system. And I graded all the games that you could think of in 2021. It's amazing how disciplined and fundamentally sound the guy is. He's awesome. Nakobi Dean is better than Devin Lloyd. And I'm running grades on Devin Lloyd right now. Now, I wasn't really impressed with the Stanford game. He had one hell of a game. But here's Nakobi Dean again. And what I like about this is look what he does after the play. Look at that. We're just going to do it again. Sorry. We're just going to play it again. Watch Nakobi Dean after he makes this play right here. Does a spring up, right? He uses hands. I can do it with no hands. No. But it's really hard to do. I mean, that's just difficult to do. That you just saw the athleticism there. Usually people do backflips or something. He did a spring up. All right. But anyways, here's Nakobi Dean again. All right. People want to know, is he a one-trick pony? No, he's not. He's not a one-trick pony because what you see here with Nakobi Dean is you see a guy that can chase the running back coming out of the flat in man-to-man coverage, right? So you're going to see it right here. Watch Nakobi Dean. This is man-to-man coverage. Chases him out of the flat. And what I really like about Nakobi Dean, especially with a guy in space, and you're going after a shiftier, maybe a more diminutive running back, is you want to play with sound fundamentals and leverage, right? So you want to use the sideline and squeeze that guy to the boundary depending on where you are in space. But then you also need to know where your help is if you have any. Well, Nakobi Dean was mindful because he knew it was man-to-man, so he knew he was basically on an island coming out of the flat. And what you saw with Nakobi Dean, and we'll play it back here. Again, this is from a scouting perspective here. You watch him attack the near hip of the receiver once he makes that catch. And he does what we also teach in basketball, which is to throttle down. All right, when you close out on a three-point shooter, for instance, you don't just close out at full speed because he can just pump fake and then blow right by you for an easy layup, and then he can create mismatches. What you want to do is once you get to, like, I would say within 2 or 3 yards, you want to throttle down. So you kind of want to scamper your steps so you can be in position. So if he tries to cut back against the grain, you're already in a position because you're in a slightly churro mode, but you're not going to give up that near hip so we can go across the grain. Or if it continues outside, once you throttle down, you're not caught in a compromised position because you're still in a help position, or what I should say, a winning position, if you will, to go ahead and make a play on the ball because you're squeezing him to the boundary, right? You're squeezing the ball carrier to the boundary. So again, these are fundamentals. What I see from some of these linebackers in college is they don't throttle down. They just try to go for the big wham and they miss, right? And they might hit it on one play, but more times than not, you're going to be wishing you hadn't do it because look at all that real estate he has to work with. Like it. All right. Here's another Nakobi Dean play right here. This is just a nice INT by Nakobi Dean. This is what I like about Nakobi Dean. Again, he can rush the passer. He can move sideline to sideline. He can sift through the smoke and all that trash. But look at this. This is a tipped ball. Good hand-eye coordination. Never gives up on the play and still makes the INT. All right, here's another angle of it. I mean, that's just beautiful. Nakobi Dean, top 10 pick all day in any given draft. He's a top 10 value pick, I should say. Now, will he go inside the top 10? I don't know. Micah Parsons didn't. But with that being said, he's a top 10 value in my estimation. I really like Nakobi Dean. I like what he brings to the table. Here's another one right here of Nakobi Dean. All right, this is a pick 6 that Nakobi Dean had, right? This is my favorite play of him. And again, he can match up with running backs coming out of the flat. I just got to go ahead and replay. So here he is on the bottom of the screen, matched up one-on-one. And watch him just jump that route. And it's a pick 6. 50-yard pick 6. He's going so fast that the cameraman can't even keep up with all 22. He's lightning. That's 4.5 speed right there. I guarantee you the quarterback saw that pre-snap and that was the hot route. He's like, man, that linebacker can't keep up with my guy. No way. Look, he made that throw knowing pre-snap where the ball was going to go. You can just tell right there that was his purpose right there. He looked off, tried to look off the safety, keep him honest, and then turns the other way, and Nakobi Dean just, boom, blows him away. All right, here's some other stuff, right? So now we're going to talk about Darian Kendrick. We talked about enough about my draft crush, Nakobi Dean. And if you guys remember this when I post stuff on Twitter, you'll maybe enter for some BEASTwriter family giveaways. All right, Darian Kendrick. Who's Darian Kendrick? Well, I graded him every single snap dating back to last year at Clemson. If you guys remember, Dabo Swinney put him in the Love Shack. He didn't call it the doghouse. He called it the Dabo Swinney Love Shack. Okay, whatever. It's the doghouse, bro, because he played at Georgia. Moving from one doghouse to another. Get it? Joking. All right, 6 foot, 194 pounds. Darian Kendrick in my grading system. Graded out extremely consistent over the past 2 years, right? In different schemes, right? One was at Clemson, the other one was at Georgia, all right? 7.3 in 2020 out of a 10, and 7.5 at Georgia in 2021. So again, you like the consistency from Darian Kendrick. He was arrested in March of 2021 with a drug and gun charge, but that was later expunged. So there are some red flags when it comes to Darian Kendrick for his off-field behavior, because, I mean, why did Dabo Swinney put him in the Love Shack? If you have good intel, you would know the answer to that. I'm not going to talk about the intel, but there's a reason that he was in the Love Shack, all right? But here's my stat line from Darian Kendrick, right? He does get beat on double moves from time to time, struggled against Jamison Williams, which I can say with conviction that Ahmad Garner did not, right? And that was really impressive because coming out of the American, we'll talk about Ahmad Garner a little bit, but all right. So Darian Kendrick, he was targeted 50 times in 2021 in my grading system, 21 of those being completed for 326 yards. Didn't allow a touchdown, just like Sas Garner. Didn't allow a touchdown, had 4 interceptions, 3 PBUs, with a quarterback passer rating of 30.9. Now, with all those numbers being set, and I already tweeted this out, what I like about Darian Kendrick, what I don't like about Darian Kendrick, go back to that Tennessee game, Tennessee Volunteer game this year. He was burned for 175 yards in my grading system. 175 yards. So if you're a scout and you're an NFL team and you're a GM and you're looking at this, you're like, man, people are saying, oh yeah, let's look at these games, right? Let's see the NFL level of competition. But then you turn on the Tennessee game and you're like, whoa, what happened? What happened to DK in that Tennessee game? Then you have to go back and be, hey man, did you just have a bad game? 175 yards? I don't know. But I do like Darian Kendrick. I think he would go somewhere in round 3. I like him a lot. He was not on ESPN's top 100 players entering the 2021 season, which I thought was interesting because he graded very highly in my BWF grades. But again, the off-field stuff, he was has to take into account something. But I like Darian Kendrick. I like DK. I think he would be a good scheme-dependent boundary cornerback because I don't think you can play man-to-man with Darian Kendrick. I think he's more of a zone scheme based, probably with a single high, maybe a cover 3 scheme, right? Someone who plays cover 3 a lot, Seahawks, they can take a flyer on Darian Kendrick. I think he would be a good fit with Seattle. Niners, I'm not so sure if the Niners would take a flyer on him because of his off-field behavior. We all saw what happened with Reuben Foster, and another player, Alden Smith. The list goes on and on. Bruce Miller. I mean, the list goes on. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to take a flyer on a guy like that. If they don't have to. But the value there, and again, Darian Kendrick to me on film is a 4.5 guy, 4.55 guy. But I don't know. It's just going to be interesting where DK ends up. But I don't see him going on day one. Probably a day 2 pick early day 2, early to late, early to mid, because cornerbacks come at a premium. I like Darien Kendrick a lot. I like Roger McCreary a lot. I like Trent McDuffie a lot. So we're just going to see how that one plays out. But again, when it comes down to those guys, Darian Kendrick he'd be a nice day 2 pickup. All right. Then we have Devonta Wyatt. All right. Georgia defensive tackle Devonta Wyatt and where he might end up. And people are asking me, well, what are my thoughts on Devonta Wyatt? Some Steeler fans are asking me if I thought he was a good fit. And I'm like, man, I like Jordan Davis obviously a little bit more. But even Devonta Wyatt, I still like Jalen Carter more than I like Devonta Wyatt. Why? Because Devonta Wyatt is a one-trick pony. He is a one-trick pony. He's strictly a run stuffer. Like, that's all he is. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying he's a good rotational guy that you can bring in. And he'll make some splash plays once in the blue moon. But again, I don't know. Anytime he gets down blocked a lot, he gets moved off his grass, as you would say. So I don't know, man. I just see a run stuffing defensive tackle, 6'3", 304 pounds with a 32 and 5/8 arm length. Yeah, that's good. I mean, the arm length is concerning, right? Because you want those 34, 35-inch arms. But hey, Devonta Wyatt played in the Power 5 conference, played on a top defense, but he just wasn't doing it. He wasn't flashing on film like a Trayvon Walker, who, despite wasn't lighting up the box score, was still making a splash in my eyes, in my grading system. So marginal traits for a 3-tech defensive tackle, in my opinion. Functional strength is lacking due to, we talked about double teams and reach blocks and down blocks and all that. Hand placement also needs work. I like to see a little bit better hand placement, maybe a little bit more violent hands, heavy hands. That goes along with needing help anchoring, right? I don't think he's really strong in his anchor. So in my estimation, at one-trick pony, I think Devonta Wyatt in any given draft, I have a round 2 grade on him, tail end round 1, top end round 2 grade. In any given draft, I just don't see, not saying I don't like Devonta Wyatt. I mean, I think he's a really, really good rotational player and a guy who has starter potential, but I just don't see enough for him consistently for me to warrant a surefire first-round grade. All right. Now let's go ahead and talk about, we have a lot of things to talk about, man, as you can see. Daniel Jr. Middleton, thank you so much for the super chat and super sticker. I appreciate the love. He says, have you created a draft mock draft yet? If so, who do you have projected at 61 with the Niners? This is interesting, and yes, I am running my mock draft. I'm going to be posting it up exclusively on the BEASTwriter Plus newsletter, and the reason I do that is so I can give my subscribers exclusive content found nowhere else on the web. So you have to subscribe. It's a subscription-based newsletter that you can subscribe. It's BEASTwriterNFL.com. You can get 7-day free trial, so you guys can kind of see how that is, and if you like it or if you don't like it, but odds are you're probably going to like it if you like my YouTube channel, because it's just putting pen to paper, or I should say, keyboard to internet. Does that make sense? But yes, I will put that out there. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about my man next. My dude, Myjai Sanders. I was really high on Myjai Sanders. If you look at my Beast receipts dating back to last year, again, graded him for the last 2 years. And they have a new DC, right? Last year they had new DC. This year they had new DC. Last year they had the old DC. Myjai Sanders was used more in a pass rushing role as a blitzer. He would come off the edge. They would use him a lot, kind of like Trayvon Walker. Kind of like how Georgia used Trayvon Walker in 2021. Myjai Sanders was used much like that in 2020. In 2021, he was more strictly as a 5-tech defensive end, right? Yes, from time to time, he will blitz the A-gaps, but more times than not, he was lined up as a 5-tech, 4-tech, 3-tech. And what I saw from Myjai Sanders is, again, what concerns me about his game And we'll just run down the numbers, right? 6'5", 228. So he's built like a strong safety, not much like a defensive end, right? Not much as a tweener or an edge rusher, if you will. He has, the thing for me is that he's a huge liability in run support. I mean, Sanders is by no means trustworthy to be an edge setter in a 43 base. I just don't see that from him. That makes him ultimately scheme dependent in a 34 base as an outside linebacker. All right, that's just my opinion, right? And if he plays in the 4-3 defensive end scheme, it'd be strictly as a situational pass rusher. A lot of times, if you watch the Cincinnati games, they take Myjai Sanders out in goal line situations. And if you're looking at it from a scouting perspective, is saying, asking yourself, why? Why are they taking out Myjai Sanders in goal line situations inside the red zone? Obvious running plays. Well, I think we have our answer, right? My BDF grades don't lie. He graded at a 7.4 in 2020. That dropped down to a 5.2 in 2021. So that's a huge discrepancy there, guys. He did have 21 quarterback pressures, so that saves his BWF grade. I mean, the guy can get after the quarterback. That's not a question, right? And that's going to elevate his draft stock because, as coaches always say, you can never have enough good pass rushers. But you can't be a one-trick pony either. Right? You have to do a variety of different things. Maybe you have to see some time on special teams to even make the 53-man roster. Right? And so Myjai Sanders had 4 sacks, six pass breakups at the line of scrimmage. That was really, really impressive. His ability to clog up passing windows once he rushes the passer, I thought that was a good bonus for him in his pass rushing arsenal. But I just see a round 3 grade for Myjai Sanders as a situational pass rusher. That's all I see from him because he doesn't have the functional strength to be an edge setter, right? And he's not fast enough to be a strong safety. He's really slow. Like, he's stiff in the hips. For some reason, he looks really, really... he doesn't have the oily hips, if you will. Not like we're talking about defensive back terms or wide receiver terms and, coming off your stem and so forth. But he just looks a little bit stiff in space. Just a little bit stiff. And he misses a lot of tackles that could have resulted in sacks. And that has nothing to do with offensive tackles gaining momentum at him and kind of pushing him out of the way once he hits the tackling radius and making a play on the quarterback. No, he just misses. He just whiffs on a lot of tackles. I don't know if that's taking poor angles on the backside or, I don't know. But he does miss a lot of would-be sacks that resulted in positive plays, right? So a huge liability in run support. Again, too often times his outside shoulder gets covered up while not being able to sustain his ground at the point of attack. So again, when you talk about run fit integrity, that's going to be something that Myjai Sanders needs to work on. Maybe he needs to add a little bit more to his frame. At 228, and I know it's been reported he added some weight, but to me, if you're looking at Myjai Sanders, because he does have the physique to kind of fill out, I would want him somewhere in at least the 240 range without compromising that speed. And I talk about speed in terms of his get off, right? The 10-yard split, if you will. I like his get off. Now, he does gamble a lot, timing the snap count. In fact, in my grading system, he was penalized 6 times for being offsides or an encroachment penalty. So 6 penalties for 30 yards of hidden yardage, and that's just not in 2021. You go back to 2020, he still has the same problem. So different defensive coordinators, I'm pretty sure, told him the same thing, but he's just still jumping off sides, trying to read the keys. As for all you Steelers fans, that's what Alex Highsmith was learning this past year. If you watch his press conference, or his pressers, I should say, Alex Highsmith, one of the things he wanted to learn was learning the cadence, learning how to read keys based on film study so he can kind of jump and get a strong get off the snap count. Myjai Sanders just jumps. He just jumps. And that can come back to hurt him. But again, his linear frame, the lack of functional strength, it's a concern for me, and he did line up primarily as a 5 tech at Cincy, but at the end of the day, I just think that Myjai Sanders, although he's a good pass rusher, is right now a one-trick pony. That's all he is a pass rusher, right? That's all he is right now for me. All right, so let's go ahead and get to some of your other questions here. We've got a lot of questions on Twitter and Instagram. All right. So, last but not least, this is another one of my draft crushes. I guess I can say I have 2 draft crushes. Right? So let me pull up the banner here. Sas Garner, right? People are asking me, what is my take about Sas Garner? Man, I really like Sas Garner. I graded every single snap of him, and according to PFF, right, he was targeted in terms of receiving yards allowed, 133. In my estimation, I already put it out there. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it, but I didn't grade the SMU game. So if you take the SMU game out in 2021, that's the only game that I didn't grade when it came to Cincinnati. I saw him being targeted for only 83 passing yards in my grading system, right? And I have the rundown on that if you want the game by game breakdown. But here you go. Ahmad Gardner, right? 6'3", 190 pounds, 33.5-inch arms. So he has the height, weight, speed that NFL scouting departments covet. In my grading system in 2021, he was targeted 39 times, 13 of those being completions for 83 yards, didn't allow a touchdown, just like Darian Kendrick from Georgia. Came up with 3 INTs, which is one less than Darian Kendrick, although if you want to talk about Georgia products and Darian Kendrick in the college football playoff, one of them could have been a holding penalty. But anyways, 4 PBUs, had a quarterback passer rating of 10.3. 10.3! If that ain't stingy, I don't know what is, all right? He did have 1 penalty for 13 yards on the defensive pass interference play. But other than that, again, he tied with Nakobi Dean in my grading system with an 8.6. So again, tied for second overall in my BWF grades for all the 2022 NFL draft prospects coming out so far. Sas Garner, the real deal, right? He's a very smart, fundamentally sound boundary cornerback with the NFL length we talked about. Garner routinely plays with a proper leverage while using sideline as an extra defender, squeezing the ball carrier, or squeezing the wide receiver, I should say, to the boundary. And that was something that I saw in Pat Surtain's game, right? If you guys saw my game film on Pat Surtain dating back to last year, you will know that I liked Pat Surtain and why I was so high on Pat Surtain, saying the most fundamentally sound cornerback coming out of this draft class since Ahmed Plummer back in 2000 in terms of fundamentals. Well, you saw it, right? I mean, in my BWF grades, when grading Pat Surtain and that whole Denver Broncos secondary, you can argue Pat Surtain. Well, I could argue it. He was my number 3 ranked cornerback. In fact, he should have been in the Pro Bowl, but Pro Bowl's a freaking fanfare bunch of crap voting anyway, so Pro Bowls don't mean anything aside from maybe an incentive base for the player, which I can see why they would be upset. But all pros is what it's at. You know, having a vote for the Pro Football Writers Association, Pro Football Writers Association, AP, that's what matters, I think, because those are the ones that actually know film. They actually watch it. Other than, oh man, household name, Richard Sherman should be in the Pro. No. All right. Rarely will you see Gardner get caught out of position or beat downfield. He has a strong cadence in his back pedal, which I really like. Very, very fluid and mirror matching downfield. That's one of the things that I liked about him, and I put down in my notes. A player who doesn't take false steps. That's another thing, right? So when you play in press as much as Ahmad Gardner does, and I will say this, Ahmad Gardner, 90% of the time he was lined up in press. Doesn't matter if it's zone coverage, whatever cover shell they were in, he was always lined up in press, which is really impressive because he suffocates the wide receiver off the line. He doesn't give him any wiggle room to go ahead and make a play. Even if the wide receiver tries to win half man, he doesn't take false steps and doesn't open his hips up too early. That's something that I like about Sas Garner's game, and you can tell he's watching the wide receiver's hips. He's watching the hips because the hips don't lie, as Shakira would say. Right? So that's what I really like about him. He's very patient at the line of scrimmage, not opening his hips up too early. Gardner's a surefire top 15 pick all day long, all day strong, just like Jordan Davis is, just like Nakobi Dean is, right? In any given draft. And he's very football savvy. One of the things I really like, another thing I should say, that I like about Ahmad Gardner when I was grading and watching coaches film and so forth was his ability to adjust his assignment on the fly. And what I mean by that is, let's say it's a cover 3. Right? Let's say it's a cover 3. His main responsibility is the numbers to the boundary, right? And let's say the running back coming out of the flat, but yet Sas Garner, right, has to play deep, right? Because he's playing the cover 3, and that curl flat defender who's supposed to be taking the running back gets fugad, as I always say, right? F up the gray area. He gets fugad, right? With that tight end or wide receiver running behind him. And now he has to be the deepest deep. But then at the same time, you're caught in a bind. You'll see Ahmad Gardner just go ahead and say, you know what? I know that the curl flat defender is getting fugad. I'm going to go ahead and take this running back out of the flat, even though it's not my man assignment. Vice versa. Let's say it's a man-to-man. and you know how good or how strong or weak your teammate is in terms of coverage, in terms of covering ground. You can watch Sas Garner's game and you can say, man, this guy is making plays that he shouldn't be making because he shouldn't even be there. But he is making the play because he has the instincts and he knows exactly how his teammates are going to make that play and what offenses are trying to do to kind of gain an advantage. So I really like Sas Garner. And although he played in the American Conference, you look at the NFL projection. Okay, well, look at the college football playoff against Jameson Williams, my number 1 ranked wide receiver. Prayers up to Jameson Williams. He posted some Twitter video, of him because he had torn ACL, but he's going to go in round 1 too. But Sas Garner held his own. In fact, in that game, in my grading system, he's only targeted 4 times, one of them being completion for 1 yard. 1 completion for 1 yard. That's it. So, really liked what I saw from Sas Garner. I think he's going to be a great player in the league, and that's pretty much going to be wrapping up this live stream. It was an hour long. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about who I felt was good based on my grading system, where these guys are ranked, where they might end up. Of course, Sas Garner can go to in a plethora of different teams. He's definitely scheme diverse as well. But it's going to be interesting because we have to know and see how the draft plays out. It is interesting, as I'm looking at my notifications here, that Bruce Arians just called it quits. He's going to go in management. If you guys haven't heard the news, Bruce Arians is not going to be the Tampa Bay Bucks coach. It's going to be Todd Bowles, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, that came out of left field, right? I wonder if that was already in the works when Tom Brady announced that he was coming back, and it just was announced today. I don't know. It's weird. Anyways, that pretty much matches and wraps up this live stream. I hope you liked what I had to say. If you did, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. Hope you liked the game film study. Hope you liked my draft prospects on the Georgia kids and the Cincinnati Bearcats. I had a lot of fun doing this. I'll be hopping on more live streams covering the 2022 NFL Draft. If you're not watching this live and you're watching it not in real time, but in hindsight, which is fine, please be sure to comment, hit the like button if you liked what I had to say, and be sure to hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all things Beast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day. BEASTwriter, out.